going on, guys? Tommy P here, back with another Naturally Obsessed look into basketball. Some new surroundings for you today. The space I use to do my videos is a little occupied today, so I'm borrowing my best friend's studio, who's a musician. So got the mic set up, got some nice looking background. Just change it up for you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Maybe we can make this a regular thing if he's okay with it. But before we begin, I always want to preface, as always, by saying I am not a basketball expert. I'm just a fan who's naturally obsessed, and today we're going to talk about a Game 6 preview between the Dallas Mavericks and the Phoenix Suns. Dallas Mavericks facing elimination at home, where they've played much, much better than the Suns. Home court's played a huge factor. I keep saying it. It's a tale of two different stories when the Suns are on the road and vice versa when the Mavs are on the road. Suns are completely dominating every aspect of the game in Phoenix, and the Mavericks are basically doing the same in Dallas. But I'm still sticking to my guns. I still like the Suns winning tonight. You know, I talked in my last video about how I personally take a lot out of what Vegas odds and point spreads are, and they've been basically right on the money. You know, Phoenix has been favored by a decent margin in games in Phoenix, and they've been virtually blowouts. They really have, and in the games in Dallas, the Mavericks have been slight favorites, and they've been virtually dominant in Dallas. You know, the Suns have clawed their way back into those games, but when it's all said and done, you look at the final score, the games weren't really that close. But in this game, in Game 6, the Suns are favored by 2.5 right now. It's not a significant margin, and when you look at how much they were favored at home versus being favored by 2.5 in Dallas, it's not a significant margin. It's giving respect to what the Mavericks have done at home. And I want to just go over some numbers. Can't be debated, so don't try to argue me on what I'm about to say right now. This is just facts. Luka Doncic has played in 2 elimination games in his career. This will be number 3. In those elimination games, he's averaging 42 points, 8 rebounds, and shooting 55% from the floor. And he's also averaging 12.5 assists. That's a significant number, 12.5 assists. But he's 0-2 in those games. Take from that what you want, but when you're putting up that level of production and you're 0-2, and we've seen it in games 1 and 2, right? Luka was putting up crazy high numbers, and the Mavericks were still losing. And that's because the Suns' game plan of shutting everyone else around him down, it was working to perfection. So, and they got back to that in Game 5. Luka only had, I want to say it was 1 or 2 assists. I didn't bring my notes in here on the Mavericks. I apologize. But what that tells me, that personally right there, that's not a Luka problem. Him only having 2 assists. That's a problem of the Mavericks role players not hitting their shots. Dorian Finney-Smith, Reggie Bullock, and Maxi Kleber, 3 starters, combined for 8 points. Dorian Finney-Smith had all 8 of those points. So that means you got 0 points out of Reggie Bullock and 0 points out of Maxi Kleber. That's a problem. That's a big problem. And we know historically, and just as evidence in what we've seen in this series so far, role players have played significantly better at home. So I don't think that's going to continue. I don't think they're going to get 8 combined points out of 3 starters. But what I do think is going to happen is I think we're going to see the Suns' defense and the Suns' bench travel much better than the previous two games in Dallas, and I think that's going to lead to a closeout. I think Monty Williams, I talked about it in my immediate reaction video, going with Landry Shamet over Campaign and Bismack Biyombo over JaVale McGee, huge. That was the difference. I know Mikal Bridges finally had a good game. Cam Johnson had a really good game, but those two in particular, the Suns do not win the game in that fashion. I think they still win the game because Devin Booker was that special. He would have had 35, 40 points if he wasn't passing as well as he was passing in that game. But those two players and how well they played made the difference. It truly, truly did. So the other thing I want to bring up, again, facts. Don't try to debate me because you can't argue with facts. This is the second opportunity the Phoenix Suns have had to close out a game. To close out a series over the last 2 years. The first time it was against the Lakers. And anyone remember what happened? Devin Booker went off for 47 points in a Game 6 closeout win on the road against the Clippers. Chris Paul, who hasn't had a great series thus far, and let me remind you what happened in the Clippers series. Chris Paul misses the first 2 games due to COVID. Comes back, Game 3 and Game 4 and Game 5. Not being very productive. He's kind of getting pushed around a little bit. Kind of like what it seems like the Mavericks are doing to him. In a closeout win, Game 6, on the road, Chris Paul puts up 40 points. 40 points. Closeout game. On the road. What does that tell you? The Suns have 2 different guys been in this situation and done it before. 2 different players, 2 different closeout games on the road, and both of them stepped up big time. I don't care how well the Mavericks have played on the road thus far. When you have 2 guys like this, been there, done that, they don't want to come back to Phoenix. They don't want to do a Game 7. And who can blame them, right? Because even me, a guy who's been completely 100% convinced from the moment I found out this matchup, I don't want to do a Game 7 because literally in Game 7, anything can happen. Anything. I want them to close it out tonight. And what do I think is going to happen tonight? Well, the first thing is I expect more of the same as far as a bench rotation goes. I think in this series, Campaign, I don't want to say he's unplayable, but he's not being held by the leash. He's being held by the collar right now. I was talking to a friend about this the other day, and I said, as much as I love Monty Williams, as much as I respect the man and I trust everything he does because I think he's earned that thus far, I can pin a little bit of pain struggles on Monty Williams. And I know that sounds crazy, but hear me out. Against this team, and with what we know about Cameron Payne, not the best defensive player by any stretch, what are you doing putting him defensively on Luka and asking him to be a part of those poor defensive transitions that we saw in Game 3 and Game 4? Because, mind you, Cameron Payne was so bad in Game 3 and Game 4, we tend to overlook the fact that in Game 1 and Game 2, Cameron Payne was shooting 50% from the floor. Cameron Payne was having a good start to this series. But he was so bad in games 3 and games 4 that we kind of forget about it. So as a coach, as the coach, I feel like because Monty asked Cam Payne to do something that he just not be something that he isn't, you can kind of pin a little bit of that on Monty. Mind you, though, Cam Payne, he's got to perform. That's the end-all, be-all. No excuses. You have to perform, especially in this high-stakes basketball game. You have to perform. So, that being said, I expect more Landry Shamet, and I think potentially see a little Aaron Holiday. And I'm not entirely sure, based off of what we've seen, if I can 100% say that we're going to see the same sort of big man rotation with Bismack Biyombo playing over JaVale McGee. I definitely think Bismack's going to get a significant amount of playing time this game. But I think we're going to see some JaVale McGee mixed in there too. You know, JaVale only played 3 minutes in game 5. And with how good of a matchup this is for a player like Bismack Biyombo, not only with the size, but the athleticism and the effort that he gives, it's a good matchup. Bismack is better in transitions. JaVale McGee, you know, obviously, JaVale McGee's the better basketball player. He's been so vital, so important to this basketball team's success. In that Pelican series, he was easily the best bench player for the Phoenix Suns. JaVale McGee is better, more important to the long-term success of this postseason and for this basketball team. But for this particular game, I think you got to go with what you saw last game. You have to. And I think we're going to see a lot of physicality in the post trying to go after DeAndre Ayton because, like I said, I think the Mavericks are in DeAndre Ayton's head. And someone brought up in the comments on one of my last videos, DeAndre Ayton is in DeAndre Ayton's head. And I saw that, and I could not have agreed more. That was a really good point because the points he brought up, you know, like DeAndre Ayton's one of those guys, last postseason up until the Bucks series, he was playing like a 7-foot grown-ass man. But against this team, how he's bigger than anyone that's on the court, and he's settling for these terrible shots, fishing for whistles, fumbling the basketball. Dude, I love you, DA. I have had your back from the get-go throughout. And the thing that drives me crazy about people on DA, and we're going to close this video with this because I have to leave this out there. A lot of people are saying DeAndre Ayton doesn't deserve the max. He's not worth the max. Well, the question isn't about, is he worth it? Does he deserve it? The question, just like in the NFL, you know, all these players, we see what the wide receiver, the quarterback market is, and people are getting overpaid. It's not about what you're worth. It's about what the market is. And the fact that we're seeing all these other players getting max contracts that we can definitively say DeAndre Ayton is better than, he's going to get a max contract. And I've said that from the get-go. Whether I think he's worth it or deserves it is a completely different take. Completely. It's all about where the market's at. Plain and simple. And for DeAndre Ayton, this is going to be a pivotal time and a pivotal game, you could say, in showing whether or not you're going to leave. No doubt about it, because I'm telling you right now, if the Phoenix Suns aren't going to pay him the max, which I've heard all year long, it's only a matter of time before the Suns offer him that contract. Granted, though, that was before this postseason when we've seen him struggle in very big moments, whereas last year up until the finals, he outplayed Anthony Davis when he was healthy. He hung in there and took the best of Nikola Jokic and gave him a few good punches back. And then was huge in that Clippers series. The Valley Oop left us with one of the most exciting memories as Suns fans. But if the Suns aren't going to pay DeAndre Ayton the max, I promise you, mark my words, someone else will. Someone else will. So, I'm pulling for the guy, and if you're a real Suns fan, you should be too. Otherwise, I don't think you're a real Suns fan. Just, that be facts. But I'm pulling for the guy. I want him to be successful here. I want him to play as dominant as a guy his size should. And more will be revealed. But for tonight, I like the Suns to close it out on the road. And I'll be watching that Game 6 between the Warriors and the Grizzlies tomorrow very, very closely. Thanks a lot, guys. Please let me know what you think down in the comments below. Like and subscribe. And I'll talk to you later. Thanks, guys.